All right, guys, I'll introduce to you Richard Williams, and we'll be discussing a little bit of his past experiences, especially more so to do with some development, I suppose, pitfalls or development properties that he has purchased and lessons that he's learnt. Richard himself is an experienced investor. I've been assisting him for the last number of years now. Lots of research. This is a gentleman that goes into his property deals with the numbers. He understands the market, does a lot of different feasibilities to understand where the property is or what things may happen. And I suppose it comes down to practical experience as well as the numbers as well. So Richard, do you want to share a little bit about yourself, and we'll get into your recent development deal.
Thanks, Jeremy. I guess initially my first purchase was a property I lived in, and then after that I saw some friends from work that had done developments, and I thought, you know, this is a better way to make money. So I started on my first little development project. It was a duplex down in Adelaide, about 2007, 2008. A syndicate of a number of guys from work. There was about 6 of us involved in that one. It was just a duplex, but it was in a smaller suburb, so it was hard to get comparable sales. Again, the guy that had done a previous project, we were probably relying on him substantially as being our expert. Then the global financial crisis came along, so we had a DA for some nice 4-bedroom double living area houses. We demolished the existing dwelling, and then we had problems with finance on that particular property due to the lending environment at the time. So we ended up, we on-sold that one, because again with 6 people, everyone's got a slightly different risk appetite. Should we throw more money into it and build and have a couple of houses that we can then sell, or do we kind of get out where we are? We'll take a bit of a loss, but we're out of it and we can move forwards. So that was an interesting scenario there. That was my first development deal as a joint venture with multiple people. From there I moved on to a duplex, so it was 50-50 just with some friends. Took the lessons from the first project into that, and again that was some good lessons because we thought we knew a fair bit, but there was lots of things we didn't know. So just quickly, the main little gotchas on that one would be your Section 94, your council contributions. What the hell's an open space fee? Why is council sending me this bill? Connections for new water meters, a block that looks nice and flat. How's that stormwater get off your nice flat block? When the builder comes along and says, oh, actually we need to raise everything 30 or 40 centimetres, so we've got to bring in this clean fill. Oh, and by the way, we're not just going to get it for free, you have to pay someone to bring it around. Then all of a sudden your block's that little bit higher, so maybe you need a retaining wall down the side under the fence, and there's another $4,000 or $5,000. And then your fencing just at $70, $80 a linear metre. So just on that one, there's like 5 little nice lessons. None of them were particularly expensive overall, but let's call it about 20 grand for water meters, council contributions, retaining walls, fencing. So an opportunity there to learn some lessons, and in a relatively kind of low risk environment, just with a duplex on residential finance.
And Richard, I suppose the big thing there is that it's not, these are the so little things that you don't think of. Normally it's about the taps and what toilets am I putting in and how high do I want the ceilings and what paint do I want to use, but we tend to forget the little things like the council contributions or retaining walls, and no one knows what the cost of the retaining walls potentially may be until obviously the block's been cut or the house has been finished, and it's hard to always factor in those particular costs if you haven't gone through the actual do-yourself.
It certainly is, Jeremy, and definitely that the team and the people you're working with, and on a little project you might go, oh, this is nice and easy, and then you jump into it and it's like, well, the builder's not going to tell you about that. It's just a nice little variation for them for a retaining wall, where you go, you know, I'm going to do it myself. I might put the air conditioning in at the end, and then you've got to decide there, you know, do I get that extra on the home loan? My home loan's a bit bigger, but then the builder puts their 20% margin on it. And a few of those little things, if you're spending that extra 20 grand, say, on a 20% builder's margin, there's an extra 4 grand you pay the builder, so you can roll that into your home loan. Or do you go, you know, 20 grand, I've got a bit extra, I'll decrease my deposit a bit, I'll save that 4 grand, and then you've got to weigh that up against perhaps the builder won't hand it over, the builder won't let you put air conditioning, for example, into a house until they've handed it over to you. Depending on where your agent and the market's at, do you need air conditioning before you rent it? Can the agent show people through, or they say, you know, you really need to finish off those couple of jobs over there, and then you might have a couple of weeks of holding costs. So maybe some things you should roll into the build contract. So there's lots of little things that you don't even think about. You might think you might save a bit of money over here and you end up paying a bit over here. What should you do? Best thing you can do is go in with eyes open and speak to people that have done it before. Don't think, oh yeah, this is nice and easy, I've built a house before. Or, I mean, that's a good start, but it's not, it's simple, but it's not easy.
I think we've had lots of clients in the past who, when they've done this, the expectation on their first one or two is not to make profit. Absolutely not to make a single dollar. And it sounds crazy. Why go through all the pain? Why go through all the hassle to make absolutely nothing? But what you're doing is, what you've learned is you've built a formula. You now understand a couple little things that you've learned from the first one or two, and that formula now is becoming more complete every time that you do the next deal and you do the next deal. And I suppose you can test different boundaries, but each deal has its own formula essentially. It's just a matter of manipulating it. Would that be right?
It certainly does, Jeremy, and you might look at it as a property investing journey, but it's as much or more so a personal development journey. Like when you get that little variation, you get home after a day in the office and your variation's there for however many thousands of dollars, you might not sleep well that night. You might go, oh geez, I haven't factored that one in. If you're cutting it close to the line, it's like you've got all these emotions and stuff. You were just building a house. Where did all these emotions come from? So it's a journey, and like you say, Jeremy, like signing build contracts, signing contracts for sale and purchasing properties and stuff. It's like, yeah, whatever. It's those things become...
A lot of the groundwork is at the building contract, isn't it? Because I've recently gone through some building contracts myself, and I've seen estimations for drop beams at 20 linear metres, and I've done a quick calculation. I'm no mathematician, but I worked out quite quickly there was probably about 80 square metres of 80 linear metres of drop beam, which changed the price from about 20,000 to about 60,000. So scrap that off the build contract, and lots of other little things. So I suppose it starts from that building contract, it starts from those ground numbers, and then you've worked it into practicality. So talk us through, recently you went to a couple of other bigger things. So you went away from building duplexes.